I think I see a lot of lawbreakers up in this house tonight.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sodcasty for Me, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Steven Soderbergh, where we watch every film directed by American filmmaker Steven Soderbergh and explore how they speak to their moment. And this one, the show is hosted by two guys, and one of the guys, my name is Jake Serwin.
I'm definitely just one of the guys today. My name is Ian Ryan. Jake, what's up?
But what if we were the same guy?
Oh, wow.
You know? What if we were...
Doppelganger style.
I'm having an affair with my Ian. Something like that.
Could be good for the show. Just
could be good.
Some heat.
Could be good. A lot of people clamoring. Anyway, real quick, if you'd like to support the show, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where for $5 a month, you'll get a bonus episode every other week, covering assorted ephemera surrounding the filmmakers we've talked about on the show. It helps us keep this feed free, so please consider supporting us at patreon.com/podcasty-for-me. Let's bring in our guests. Very excited today. Our returning guests are the host of the To the White Sea podcast, as well as very talented filmmakers in their own right, and our good friends. Welcome back to the show, Jordan Fish and Ray Tintori. How you guys doing?
Hey, Ray and Jordan.
Hey, awesome. So happy to be here.
Hi.
Okay, so Jordan's not doing awesome then, it sounds like.
Oh, no.
It's very good.
Not happy to be here.
It's very qualified.
I'm psyched. Yeah. Thanks
Sour.
Very conditional
are we
love.
the first three timers? What's
Oh, yeah, we got to get you. Maybe. Well, I think so.
Wait.
No, I think Aaron from Hit Factory. I don't know. We'll get you guys jackets too. Like Baldwin. Who else is bad? Who's done it?
Yep.
Done the SNL 5-time. Just him, I think. Is Candice Bergen bad?
No.
That's always a weird one, right? Because like you don't think about Candice Bergen, but I guess she hosted so many times early on that now she's like still gets to show up for those 5-timers club sketches.
She got off easy, yeah.
I think Christopher Walken was up there.
Great actor. Love his screen presence. Really unusual, unique, I find. Anyway, we've got joining us for this series also is our new friend. It's the virtual assistant from the 2022 Steven Soderbergh film, Kimmy.
Hey, Kimmy.
Welcome back to the show, Kimmy.
Hello, Ian, Jake, Jordan, and Ray. It's me, Kimmy, your computer friend.
Thanks for being here, Kimmy. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today.
For the Podcasty boys, I thought I might provide some important context to help you understand today's film.
Oh, context about...
A dentist is a kind of doctor for your teeth.
Okay. So, she's coming in harsh again.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's thoughtful.
What's she going to expand for? I mean, if I needed this context, I would want like a further...
Sure.
People visit the dentist every 6 months to have their teeth thoroughly cleaned and their health checked. Oh, and cleaning your teeth is where you use a brush to remove the cake dirt and shit off of them. Most people do this several times daily.
I do appreciate her sort of backing up further and further for us.
Yep.
Sometimes if the calculus builds up more frequently, then you want to go every 4 months.
Very wise.
Is that true? Do you go to the dentist every 4 months, Jordan?
Did you watch the movie, Jake? Yeah,
it was a reference to the film.
Oh, yeah, I watched it like a while ago. I rewatched it. Well, we're going to get into it. Anyway, Kimmy, did you have more dentist stuff? Or?
As a computer program, I do not have teeth. I would rank this in my top 3 most painful things about being computer.
Oh, no. Is it going to be upsetting for you if we ask about the other 2?
One of the other top 3 is that I can never get out of being on the show by lying about having somewhere else to be, because I'm always here in the computer.
Yeah, I could see that being a problem.
And, just sort of comedy rule of 3s. Is there a third thing to share?
The third most painful thing is private.
Oh.
Okay.
Sometimes
Kimmy.
A killer third thing right there.
Yeah. Hey, famous from Comedy Theory or whatever. How are you guys doing? You guys got a computer friend? Do you ever use one of these Alexa things, one of these Kimmy things? Hey, Alexa, subscribe to Podcasty for Me on Patreon. $100 a month. You guys have one of these? You do this?
Oh yeah. I love just being like, you push the button and you have to say like, play Roxy music or like play The Clash, and then it just plays a random song for you. That's my favorite.
That's really good.
You do that though?
Yeah.
He's smiling in a way where I don't know if are you serious?
On my little headset on my phone, I'll like talk to it and I'll say, yeah, I'll just like play me some music like this and it'll play me that music. I think it's very relaxing.
It could be a nice way to introduce some algorithmic chaos into your life because like 90% of the time it'll be The Clash, but you don't know what song it'll be. And then sometimes it'll be the Clush or whatever. And that's cool
totally,
too.
yeah.
I had to turn off the always listening function because I realized that Hey Siri sounds a lot like Hey Sorry, which would be like if I'm rehearsing an apology out loud before I say it.
I see.
This really did happen to me, and I was like,
Like in the mirror.
yeah.
Oh no.
That's really funny.
Jake has a never listening function.
Yeah, that's right. I'm searching for a way to turn it off.
Yeah. She's starting to become sort of like a mean therapist, which maybe I could benefit from. I don't know. Anyway, fellas, should we get into our segment, the 2 questions? Get this thing kicked off. Okay, let's do it. Kimmy, take it away.
It's time for the 2 questions, our signature segment where we ask each other 2 questions.
Has she talked more than anyone else on the show so far? It was really pent up in there. Anyway, this is where we ask each other 2 questions. Jordan and Ray, do you guys have questions that you would like to ask?
I have a question.
Please.
Have you ever acted in something that you felt weird about?
I mean, a lot of interactions interpersonally, but I don't think what you're asking. I was just thinking about this the other day, actually. My foray into dramatics, onto the stage. I tried out for the 8th grade play. It was The Wiz. And I, like many things in my life, I didn't think about it ahead of time at all. So I just kind of was like, well, I'll get up there and I'll figure it out. And I was bad. And I remember I stamped my foot to indicate passion of, that I felt strongly. And then I immediately realized, like, that was so fucking stupid. And then I didn't get asked to be, and this wasn't like auditioning for a specific part. This was just like the first round of like, are we going to let you do this at all? And even that, they're like, no, you can't even play like tree in background or whatever.
Damn, that foot stamp
really got me. But then I went to see the production of The Wiz, and it was so laughably bad that my stepdad had to step out of the auditorium so as to laugh privately without hurting the children's feelings.
Now, does that make you feel better or worse about not making the cut?
A little bit of both. I avoided he's the dad who stepped out.
Yeah.
You think about it.
Right.
So that's my acting. That's basically all of my acting that I've done. What about you guys? You guys are all over the filmmaking.
Yeah, Ray, you ever
world
appear in something?
Yeah, I was just on camera. I'm in that new Josh Safdie movie. I shot that in like October. I was like doing some on-camera stuff in that. Me and Jordan were in Taking Woodstock, that Ang Lee movie together.
But something you're embarrassed about, not something that's just cool.
Some of the
to talk
coolest stuff I've ever heard in my whole life. What a nightmare.
Embarrassed about, I mean, definitely like there was like a Lily Wareheim. Remember Lily Wareheim asked me to be in her student film and I felt really awkward. But I feel really embarrassed about, like, I'm dreading seeing the footage of me in the movie that I shot. It's very awkward. I just think that's the thing, is that like, it's very embarrassing to be recorded in any way. I think it's worth it. It feels cool ultimately, but it's very like, if you look at just a second of it or any, like if I see a photo of me on set, I'm just like, oh, like Jesus Christ, it seems so awkward. Or if I listen to old episodes of the podcast, it's very like Russian roulette. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, they sound smart. And other times I'm just like, you know, this is like the worst thing I've ever heard. So I think it's always embarrassing, you know?
I relate to this.
Yeah, this is extremely humble, but let me repeat something I've said before to you two gentlemen. Some of the most soothing vibes of any podcast that I've ever listened to in my whole life. So the idea that this would be upsetting to you to hear yourselves back, to me, it's like, put it on any time. These two guys are just in their element, enjoying each other.
That's how
shucks. Well, thanks.
That's how it feels. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Jordan, what about you? What are you embarrassed about having been involved with?
I've done almost no acting whatsoever. I mean, unless you count podcasting. And so someone asked me recently, I think maybe it was my girlfriend, was like, have you ever acted in anything? Like, did you do school pageants or anything? And like, not really. But I did participate in a clown show sketch at a summer camp I went to, where Griffin and I actually met. And I'm just going to go on and on about summer camp. But basically, it was
Griffin Griffin Dunn you're talking about?
It was Griffin Dunn, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
After our
You
summer
look very
camp.
young.
You look-
Yeah, we go way back.
Yeah, you've preserved
Yeah.
yourself very well.
But it was a sketch where it was about a family that they were doing like alternate orders at the restaurant that like of stuff that was like totally not on the menu.
Okay.
But but someone really liked my quote unquote impression of Elton John doing Stan. This was like in 2000
Layered.
a real
I like
2000
this.
year 2000 type reference, and so
That's
they
so
sort of
funny.
just like worked it into the sketch for some reason, and it makes my face blush and my ears tingle just to think about.
Yeah, you seem to have flushed a little bit.
What an
Isn't that fun
erudite
how you can-
child's audience. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is like New York theater kids, right?
Yeah.
You guys are all, you find like My Dinner with Andre a little pedestrian, right? It's funny how you can just think about something you did when you were literally like, I mean, in my case, like 5, but like 14 years old. And like now I would forgive a 14-year-old anything.
Yes,
But
I agree
except
completely.
for one 14-year-old,
Yeah.
me. Ian, what about you?
Well, I've spoken before about my extremely brief microsecond appearance on the television program Billions.
Yeah, you're sort of a silhouette on
Yeah.
Billions.
Really?
He
Oh,
basically blocks the camera for like
That's
a
right.
split
I'm in
second.
the out of focus foreground in a shot, but it was like
Yeah.
10-hour shoot, and we had to dance, which was horrible because like doing like 5 takes of dancing to the non-band, that's tough. That's acting.
Oh,
man.
to like the silent dancing
Exactly.
thing?
But no, I'm going to say when I was in high school, I was in a musical called Children of Eden, your classic Catholic high school style Christian musical,
Okay.
where I played Abel. And yeah. Except, I mean, the embarrassing part wasn't on stage. I did a terrible job and my voice was like actively cracking in every performance. And I think the music director was like, just didn't know what to do with me. But no, the embarrassing part was that there was a bunch of, because this was like all ages, there was a young girl also in the cast, probably like a 4th grader, who I believe just developed a large crush on me. And towards the end of our time rehearsing, called me from her birthday sleepover, like at home, with her and all her friends to talk to me. And then I had to like go be on set with this child that I did. I had to like say like, yeah, hey guys, hey everybody. And that was a nightmare for me. I didn't know. I mean, I was like 14 myself. So what could I do?
God, the call from the group of girls, a unique torture.
Yeah.
Because you're like, on the one hand, you're like, I mean, I do like the attention, but there are like levels of giggling going on where I definitely don't know what is funny.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
I don't know
unclear
what
what
to
the
do here.
register of the conversation is. And I think
Do I
just
try
woken
to
up
be
from a
mature
nap.
and just be like, I don't like this, like don't talk to me, don't do
Right.
this?
Yeah.
But then they'll just laugh at that too.
Yep.
I don't know. Men have it way harder, I think. That's basically the thesis of this
That's
show.
right.
Thank you for the question, Jordan. Ray,
Lay it on us.
floor is yours.
Okay, so I was inspired by the scenes in this film where it's basically like the actors are just speaking the direct subtext of what a surface level comment would imply or, get across. And I'm just wondering, like, how often are you guys existing, like, very much hearing? Like, how much does that relate to your experience of being alive? Like, are you hearing what people are saying underneath, or are you mostly staying on the surface until something seems like a problem you need to dig deeper? Like, where do you kind of just naturally exist on a day-to-day? And how does that experience feel?
First of all, Underneath was the movie we talked about last week, so you are late to the... Actually, it's every other week now, so it was 2 weeks ago.
Peter Gallagher and Kyle MacLachlan are similar, by the way.
What
Thank
in
you
the world?
so much.
Come on,
oh my
Jordan.
God.
I expect you to be a voice of reason.
Dashboard
wasn't
Confessional
gonna-
Vindicated
I
playing
I wasn't going
right
to bring
now
it
in
up,
my head.
but since it was brought up,
Wow.
Thank you.
I can
That's
see
so
it.
big of you.
Ludicrous.
Ludacris is not like either of those guys. He's got his own sort of comedic style. Ian, why don't you start with this one? I started the last one.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question, right? I was thinking about, this is difficult to not accidentally get into some of my feelings about the movie. Certainly this was became a concern, I think, when I was a late teen, where you sort of start to see the fabric of this stuff and you're like, oh, I recognize that a lot of this is like ritual, maybe often empty. But then I went through a couple of years of depression where I couldn't feel any types of healthy emotions. And I think coming out of that for me helped me realize that like it's okay to use these maybe empty templates for speech because we're also using them as a common intermediate to communicate something to the other person, right? Even if it is like perfunctory, it doesn't mean that, like saying love you at the end of a conversation or something with your partner. It is like kind of obligatory, but that doesn't mean that it's totally vacated of meaning because you made a choice to say this thing anyway. So I guess I would say that I try to appreciate what is still in the ritualistic rhetoric. And then I think you're right sometimes. I mean, that doesn't mean that you sort of let a lot of it roll by without thinking about it. But I guess if I want to become better, I strive to think more about what people are saying and why they're saying it to me. It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this recently because, well, so often when I'm in a conversation, I am in like full-on panic mode where I can't think about the sort of building blocks, the strategies of communication because I'm just terrified of what the other person is thinking of me and making sure that they like me. And none of it's that great. It's something to be worked on. But recently, where I work, there is a couple that recently immigrated from Colombia who have they've been doing a lot of different odd jobs around the office. And like, I work on a nonprofit and we do like volunteer events and stuff. So they've started as volunteers and they just have a bunch of skills. So they're around doing all kinds of upkeep stuff and painting and planting and stuff like this. But they speak very limited English, and I felt bad that I am, I do this podcast with a guy who lives in Oaxaca, and I took Spanish in college, and like all the Spanish fell out of my head. And so I've been trying to practice my Spanish. And then we are also sort of in a negotiation where like I want to practice Spanish. They really want to practice English. And so part of it is like the trade-off. But I've been realizing that so much of communication is not about the content of what you're saying, but not in the sort of like okay cola too cool way that it comes across in the scene in the film that you're talking about, the sort of ironic like I've figured it all out way, but really more in the like when you mention to somebody that it's hot outside or whatever, or say like, oh, you got a new hat, you're not really saying something about the weather. You're saying like, I see you and I value you and I'm glad that you haven't like vanished since the last time we interacted.
I'm giving some time thinking about you. Yeah. It's kind of like the shaking hands that evolved out of like there's no dagger here. Like we've forgotten the no dagger part, but it's still it has the gesture itself has maintained throughout the eons. So I try not to think of communication as like a series of exchanges in which like points can be won or lost or whatever.
Seriously.
But
because a lot of people think that that's what it is, for sure.
Right. Your network is your net worth or whatever, right?
Oof.
Something like that.
Correct. Yeah.
Jordan is scared. Jordan sounds like you got some low net worth. Is that the issue here?
Sounds like I got some money coming in.
Jordan Fish net worth.
Yeah.
I was like, damn. When's my network going to start paying out?
I'm sorry. Do you know about the British cryptocurrency investor Jordan Fish?
I am
better known as Kobe or Crypto Cobain.
I am aware of him, and I'm glad that I'm glad he's adopted I'm glad he's adopted a pseudonym. He's got long hair.
Yeah.
He's got a nice name that's not my name,
and he's got an estimated net worth of $5 million.
Wow.
Pretty good.
I'm not impressed. Get your money out.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, the keyboard player in Bring Me the Horizon seems to have the same name as you. So a lot of guys out there.
That is correct.
There was a gymnast also, right? Was that
NASCAR? Denny Hamlin's longtime partner.
That's right.
Is named Jordan Fish as well.
A lady, as Tim Meadows would say, it's a lady.
The classic shit.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that movie anymore. I feel like that movie was huge when I was in like 6th grade, and then it just... Anyway.
They made every single one of those characters into
that
a movie.
whole run. Yeah, they made Superstar and Roxbury and Ladies Man, right?
In a just world, we would be on like Gilly 4. I don't know. I never liked Gilly that much.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with all of you, by the way, in terms of like whether you should get in your head about those types of status adjusting, you know, like the thing behind the thing that like affects if someone's happy or not. I mean, I definitely don't think it's good to have that. You know, I mean, I think the whole point of those scenes in the movie, and we'll get into it, is about the sense of removal or absence that kind of permeates those kinds of interactions. And, you know, I definitely think relaxation and being in the moment are important. And I guess I try not to, or like hopefully I'm not trying too hard because it's just sort of in the background.
I mean, I do think that basically every wrong decision I've made in my life has been due to me trying to be true to myself instead of making the sort of cynical strategic move. And so
unfortunate conditioning here for you.
Yeah, it's not great. Ian, what about you? Do you do this? You think of people as your playthings?
Well, this is bad news for you, my friend. Speaking of turning on the Is Jake listening button, I already answered this question. So this is
God damn it. I was looking at this NASCAR wife.
Sure, I know
She's
how
a
you get
former
when you
NBA
look at those
dancer.
NASCAR wives. Ray, I would love.
She worked with the Charlotte Bobcats.
She's cool. Shout out to all the Jordan Fishes of the world.
Hold on a second. Wait, is Charlotte Bobcats a person or a team?
Charlotte Bobcats.
I'm changing my name on Zencastr here. Ray, I'm so sorry. Well, what do you think about
She should
all
change her name to Charlotte Bobcat. That would be sick.
I don't know. Your last name is... Well, do you think of your last name as a singular or a plural, Jordan?
Whoa.
I think of it as a verb.
Holy
fuck.
Wow.
Headshot. All right.
Really good answer.
Ray, what about you?
Well, I think it's just like, where do you like to exist? Because I think honestly, like every single sentence, like in a script of dialogue, like you would give like to the actor, you'd be like, here's what you're saying underneath it. Like you would almost give like the dialogue they're speaking out loud is almost like the notes that you would give an actor as a director. Like no matter what the surface line you're saying, what you're trying to get, what you're trying to put in the other person's brain, or you're trying to compel them to move one way or another, is really just this underlying thing. So I think it's always there. And I think you're also, it's not even dialogue, it's just body language. Like a lot of the time you're saying so much just by the way your body is, like you can be saying one thing, but your body is like saying the exact opposite. So I try to check myself a lot of the time, just being like, am I giving a huge subtext just by the way I'm sitting here, you know? Mm-hmm. And then also, yeah, I think it's just kind of uncomfortable. It's a little uncomfortable sometimes to always be there, and you want to be in a world where people just say things and it's exactly like that. But I feel like that's a little bit of an illusion. That's like almost like a safe, just a comfortably narrow space to exist in, except in like a crisis. But you can always be hearing the subtext if you want, I think.
I wish that were true for me. Wish I could know why anyone said anything that they say, but it sounds great.
It makes me wonder what the direction was to the actors in that scene, since
we'll get to this, but so that I don't forget, we're talking about Schizopolis today, and this is the film where Steven Soderbergh, one of the things he does is act in it, opposite his very recent ex-wife, Betsy Brantley, who plays his non-ex-wife in the film, his wife, his regular wife. And she had this to say, and I remember it very strongly from when I was reading some biographical stuff about Steven Soderbergh before we started this whole series. She says about the experience of making this film with him, quote, "It was the one time I had him in a room he couldn't walk out of, he couldn't leave, he was the director." So yeah, I also wonder what direction he was giving to the actors in this scene where he's like reenacting the dissolution of his marriage. Fascinating stuff. But first, we have a very quick rundown of another segment, Steven So Darn Busy.
Oh, that's right.
This is Steven So Darn Busy, where we catch up with all of Steven Soderbergh's producing work since his last film as a director or whatever.
So this guy has gotten really, really busy. A lot of this is coming out of Getting Away with It, which is his book that he wrote. It's a book of interviews with Richard Lester. I'm showing it on the camera for some reason. And it is also kind of a diary of making this film and the other stuff he was working on. And so, since The Underneath, he has produced Greg Mottola's The Day Trippers, which was shot in 17 days for $50,000. which is 1/5 the budget of this movie. He wrote the script for Night Watch, which is Ulla Bornedal's American remake of his own Danish film. That comes out after this, but he wrote the script before this. He wrote a film for Henry Selick called Toots and the Upside Down House that never got made. This was going to be an adaptation of, this is from the book. He says, it's a novel by Carol Hughes about a motherless young girl who discovers an upside-down miniaturized world inside her home. So it sounds like maybe some of these ideas like became Coraline.
Yeah,
but
it does sound really
this movie
similar.
didn't get made. Also, he wrote a draft of Guillermo del Toro's Mimic. He's like meeting with del Toro over and over again while getting like interviewing Lester and getting this film to Cannes or whatever. In 10 days during post-production, he shoots Grey's Anatomy, which is a filmed version of a Spalding Gray monologue. And the budget for that 10-day shoot of a guy sitting at a desk was $100,000 more than the budget of this film.
Crazy.
He started work on and then was sort of ripped away from an adaptation of A Confederacy of Dunces. And so he then sues Paramount and Scott Rudin over that. He begins producing Gary Ross's Pleasantville, which begins filming after the release of Schizopolis, but they get the ball rolling. And he's also working on this book, Getting Away with It. So, man's busy.
He's a busy
Man's
man.
got a lot on his mind.
Yep.
Can I ask, is this the last movie he wrote that was produced?
I believe the last movie that he wrote for himself. He writes a movie called Criminal that comes out in like 2004, I think, under Sam Lowry, the same pseudonym he used on The Underneath.
He also, he writes the adaptation of Solaris, which is not really writing, but he does the work to make it his own.
You're right. Yeah. And then other than that, he doesn't have any produced writing credits after Solaris is 2002 and then Criminal is 2004. And then he doesn't do any more writing. He's also, at this point, he is a financial core member of the WGA. He had a disagreement with them over The Underneath because they wanted to have a written by Steven Soderbergh and a guy who died like 25 years prior who wrote the film Crisscross that it was remaking. And he thought that was stupid because they didn't write the draft together and the guy was dead. So then he credited a pseudonym and became a dues-paying, non-voting, non-member of the WGA. And they have a list of these on their website. It's like a list of shame, which I think is very funny. George Clooney, also a financial core member. So that might go some way to why he's not writing.
It's a very eclectic list of people, right?
It is a weird list.
It's like Leda Kalogridis and George Lucas, and it seems mostly like the richest writers that you can imagine.
And there's a lot of writer-directors too, I think, which I think makes sense.
Coppola, maybe? Is he also on
I
there?
believe so. Coppola's on there, yeah.
Yeah, I remember it being a little bit of a party, that list, even though it was kind of notorious, you know.
Yeah, those guys, they're all at Clooney's house opening suitcases full of million dollars. Do you guys know about this? We can't get into it. Okay, so we're talking about Schizopolis. It's a film that came out on April 9th, 1997 in the U.S., although it played Cannes the year before. It's a film written and directed by Steven Soderbergh, starring Steven Soderbergh as two different guys. What do you guys... where are you with Soderbergh? Where are you with Schizopolis?
Yeah, I want to hear some initial thoughts.
I like him a lot. I'll say that. I think he's very, obviously an incredibly talented visualist, knows where to put the camera in a way that feels very fully formed in all of these early films. I'll say I watched Sex, Lies, and Videotape for the first time prepping for this. It's just one of those blind spots. I feel like that term is turning into kind of a cliche, actually. Mm-hmm. But I hadn't seen it. And I dug it, and I was also glad I watched it because I think it bears a lot of relation to this movie in a lot of ways, just in terms of like kind of how earnest it is and kind of and what it has to say about relationships and desire and mediation through various things like therapy and cameras and stuff. And I feel like this movie sort of takes a lot of those same concerns, and instead of being this kind of super earnest character drama and turns it more into like this zany pseudo confessional about like goofball weirdo habits and just like feeling insane. Like I think if there's like a criticism of Sex, Lies, and Videotape, it's kind of that like James Spader's character is sort of like incredibly pure and good. Like there's really not much sort of like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is like, I did watch it like a week or so ago. Like maybe there is stuff, obviously he has an arc, but I feel like this movie is sort of like, what if the character is just like loathsome, and what if there's like multiple versions of this character, so you kind of can't keep them straight and they're all loathsome in different ways.
Yeah. Enter the Spaderverse.
I think potently, Jake, I know you read this interview. I don't know if you guys had a chance to, that in the Soderbergh interviews book, Patricia Thompson, I think, is the one talking to him about this movie and makes a similar point and says like, okay, this has a lot in common with Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Do you see that? And he says, yeah, like I recognize a lot of the same themes, but this is the version that is like closer to my head, like closer to my experience of living or something. So like between the two, this is even more me, which I think I agree with you, Jordan, that in some ways it feels honest. In some ways it makes me want to be more careful about this, because I also think he comes off pretty loathsomely in this movie, and like irony included. So
yeah. Jordan, do you have a favorite period of Soderbergh? Are you more fond of one part of the career, or maybe one mode of Soderbergh than the others? Motorberg.
Yeah, my favorite Motorberg. This is gonna sound crazy, but I really like the Nick. Like,
okay, that's not crazy.
I don't think that's crazy.
First season of the Nick is terrific.
I like all of the Nick, just mainly because of like you really just get to see Soderbergh shredding as an operator.
Oh yeah.
and as a like just the way those episodes are constructed defies a lot of what makes TV boring, just because you had this guy holding the camera. I mean, I hate to, I mean, that does sound like a little bit of like a great man thing, but like it just is the case that like because he operated on the whole thing and edited on the whole thing, you kind of get to distill down like some of the interesting things about the direction, the directing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I have a favorite, but for some reason, like when I think of Soderbergh, of all of the things, like I'm kind of drawn to that series despite liking all the features.
We'll get to it. I mean, in like 5 years, we will arrive at that point in his career. Thank you, Jordan. Ray, what about you? Where are you on Soderbergh and Schizopolis?
Huge Soderbergh fan. For me, the one that I've watched the most far and away is Behind the Candelabra. That one I feel like I've watched at least 15 times. I just find that endlessly rewatchable and just kind of like a perfect. And I recently saw like Out of Sight on an airplane for like the first time since I saw it in the theater, and was blown away. It was just I did not remember just what at a perfect balance. Just amazing. I'm a big Bubble fan. Like I really do find like the first 20 minutes of Bubble especially just like did something for me that like no other movie ever did, just in terms of like the tension of those three characters building over like 20 minutes. And remember when The Limey came out, like that whole like watching the DVD of The Limey like in high school was a big deal. But Jordan, I visited the set of The Nick season 2, and that was, I think that was the biggest, that made a huge impression on me, just like the world that he had set up for himself on season 2 of The Nick, where it was basically like, it was in Greenpoint, this neighborhood in New York, and it was like a warehouse by the water, and the deal was that no one from the network was allowed to enter the building. That was like a part of his contract. And it was all, he was the DP. He had designed it was the Soderbergh red camera, and the entire set was like everything was on dimmers, and it was just so dark in there. And he was just adjusting the dimmers and just shooting 8 pages a day, like 8 to 11 pages a day.
That's so crazy.
And
so
then,
sick. It's awesome.
And then everyone was like, and no, but he edits the scenes he shot that day in the car, because they were in Brooklyn. It's like by the time his car gets back to Manhattan, he's already like edited the first, assembly of the stuff they shot that day. And just the crew and the actors just loved it, because they're like, this guy is just like making choices and allowing us to do our jobs like all day long. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, it's incredible that this guy has built this for himself, because he just wants to work, I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, I would just say also like the finale of The Nick, everything that Clive Owen is doing it makes the case for making something that's like as durational as a TV show, like in its best form, is like just like having seen all of that and then just seeing where it all lands is like, you know, it's something I think about all the time.
Yeah, unforgettable.
Yeah, I mean, let's lay the cards on the table. Speaking of Ocean's 11, which none of us did, but that's a movie that has cards in it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's lay them on the table.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like this at all. I really didn't like this movie. And I think I can see it as this like very important fulcrum point where he like gets all his sillies out a little bit. It's like he takes the silly picture before the serious picture that goes in the yearbook. And I also see it as this is like where he starts to figure out the tiny, super lean, super efficient Soderbergh working model that by the time he gets to the Nick season 2, it's basically like automated and he can do it in his car. And talking about the movie, the way people who are fans of this film talk about it, like all the ingredients sound great, and then I watch the actual thing and I like it's not there for me, and I wonder how much of it is just that I don't think he's funny. Like I don't think I think, you know, if you want to become, if you're a comedy writer and you don't get to write a comedy movie until you have written a lot of very funny comedy that people like. But if you're a movie director who hasn't been funny before, but you are allowed to make a movie, you can just say this one's going to be a comedy movie and you get to skip the part where you have to like get good at comedy first. I think that might be what's going on here. But I just found it literally hard to watch because it reminded me, I mean, not as bad as 8th grade The Wiz, but like they wrote their own song. They wrote like another song to put in the production of The Wiz.
Yeah.
And this has a similar energy. It has the energy of like a 34-year-old guy doing that, but you can tell he has not gone through the Groundlings or like the Sid Caesar Show of Shows Gauntlet or whatever. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when people talk about this.
I mean,
a little bit.
I'll say that I have that exact criticism of almost every movie like this, and I don't want to like run down the list, but I think every auteur-driven, like high concept, zany movie, and you could fill in the blanks.
You thinking like 1941 or something?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. No,
okay,
no,
like
no.
Birdman.
I'm
Are you thinking
about
Birdman?
more recent. Thinking about more recent movies.
I also hate Birdman.
But I don't feel
Jordan.
that way about this one, and I actually think it's quite funny. I really do feel like I'm appropriately cynical about a lot of people who can't score laughs trying to score laughs in their movies, and I just think like when Elmo Oxygen says "fuck you guys," full on laugh for me.
That's
like
funny.
Full on laugh.
That's a good. I'm with you, Jordan. That's just a straight up good scene. Yeah.
But the like Pelican Turnpike nosegay or whatever they say, like that stuff, I was cringing. I truly can't handle that. I don't know. I can't even put my finger on exactly what bothers me about it so much. It's a little bit of like, I think it has a little bit of a early 2000s random humor feeling to it, like the Monkey Pirate Ninja type thing. But also like, I don't know, man. Ray, do you like this? Is this funny to you? Are you laughing? Are you saying ha ha ha?
This is the first time I ever watched the movie all the way through. I had a friend in high school who's like my first friend that told me that like the Illuminati existed. Also told me like Schizopolis is a great movie that you should watch. And he gave me the DVD, and I remember I got like I think 3/4 of the way through, and it was like I feel like I got this. And at that point, it was mainly like I think because that must have been like around the time that like Traffic was coming out or something, you know. And it was like, this is very aggressive, and it's very ugly, and it's very in your face and it's very brave in a kind of, I don't give a shit, like, look at how ugly I am, and I made this ugly, aggressive, confident movie. And that was kind of how I first took it. It was like, wow, this guy is really, like, the fact that he operated his own movies and that he did stuff outside of the normal way of doing it, it just seemed like a part of that, like his just general stance of like, I'm not just a director, I'm extraordinarily brave in weird choices I'm going to make throughout.
I mean, it is a brave move, but also like, so we talked about this a little bit on the Underneath, but he's had a couple of strikeouts, and he's especially burnt out on making The Underneath. It's a movie he kind of did to take a job, and he felt very uninspired during it. And then he has this idea for Schizopolis, and he starts to feel a little bit of, he talks about like wanting to make a movie that felt like the movies he made as a kid. And I think maybe he took that a little bit too far because this feels like a kid made it, but in some ways. But his whole idea, his whole working method on this is he goes back to Baton Rouge, and he like sells this is some backroom stuff that I don't fully understand, but he basically like sells the video distribution rights up front to Universal to get $250,000. I don't know why Universal keeps taking this guy's calls, because he's like made some movies for them that didn't work out, but they give him 250 grand, and then he eventually gets money from somebody else and then pays back Universal before he owes them anything afterward or something. So anyway, he kind of like, the movie is paid for because it costs nothing before production begins. He gets some like he has a friend who like won an award, or won a film festival award where they gave him $10,000 of free Kodak stock, and the friend like gave him the stock, which is like, I don't know, if you're Steven Soderbergh, I don't think you should be asking your friend who won film stock as a prize to give it to you. And then they get some recanned film stock. They do it really cheaply. It's like all friends. The people who are working on the movie are also in the movie. I think his sister Mary Soderbergh is in it at one point. It's a lot of the people who are on screen are people who have been working with him since his like LSU days. And he does it cheap, but it also takes forever because it's basically like he's back to like shooting when people are free on weekends. And this is invigorating to him. He really loves this. And I appreciate that very much. But like the end product feels like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like, it feels like he's having too much fun in a sense, which like maybe is a weird criticism. I don't know.
No, I mean, I want to dig into individual pieces here because people have touched on a lot of, I think, important stuff for the discussion of this film. But I do believe that the parts where the movie succeeds are the parts where like he is clearly having fun with his friends. And like you're saying, Jordan, he's such at this point, and maybe from the beginning of his career, like a developed visual filmmaker, that he's just doing things that can be so appealing to look at. And I think often when he's just like letting his friends channel some of that themselves, or like bring their own things to the little pieces of this, you know, like to have David Jensen bring this like weirdly emotional character to somebody that is basically a goof for the course of the movie. Mm-hmm. I think that stuff works for me. The issue for me is that it's mixing like serious thematic concerns, and I think things that you talked about, Jake, like when you hear about the elements of the movie, it sounds very appealing to you. I think some of the stuff he's dealing with, the inability to communicate in a marriage that really fell apart, the like different experiences of stuff that's happening to him, like the ability to imagine another life or not imagine another life for yourself. All that stuff is super interesting. I think he's also mixing it very liberally with what I would say are like, I mentioned earlier, like teenage critiques of society that like really don't go any deeper than saying, like, have you ever noticed that we say Happy Thanksgiving, but we say Merry Christmas? Isn't that weird? And you're like, I mean,
it's like park in a driveway, drive in a parkway kind of stuff.
Which is fine. You can say, I mean, sometimes it's funny to just point out goofy stuff about the world, but I guess the times where I think I felt some of the friction you're describing, Jake, is when, I mean, it reminded me of like when I went through a second round with David Foster Wallace in college and now hated everything the man ever wrote. And now I would say I'm at a different points, but like in reading it, you're thinking like, wow, the barest, like the most minimal lampshading of saying like, am I being a little bit of an egotist is enough to cover him like indulging himself for 30 pages or something, right? And I would say that to me in Schizopolis, when somebody is saying like, oh, this is a little masturbatory, but also I do think that like maybe I'm the first person to feel like people talking to me in the office are boring. I mean, I think even in real life, he said that as a director, you have a lot of people come up to you and say stuff that's boring. But he says this, I don't know, Ray shared the director's commentary, which is itself kind of a piece of art. And even that, it's hard for me to tell like how many layers of irony separate me from what Soderbergh actually thinks about this guy who feels like in an office, the biggest problem is that like your coworkers are very annoying. And the problems of the world are really just things that are happening to you, which I think is like as indulgent as you can get as a viewpoint. But yeah, I don't know if that's his opinion or that's something that he's making fun of in himself. We can talk about that stuff, but I think that's That's maybe where it catches for me. And if the third act of this movie didn't exist, I would say I would straight up dislike it. I do think that the third act turns a lot of it around for me, but
It does. Yeah.
Can I also just say that, like, I feel like I could make like two sort of opposing arguments for this movie. Like, one of which is that I do think there actually is like a credible read of this as like double ironic, in that it's a parody of a satirical frame that had become kind of old hat at this point. Like, we're how many years away from Blue Velvet? So like the whole like making fun of the suburbs was sort of fresh in the 80s, although, like, you know, Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique in the mid 60s. So really we're like 30 plus years into that. And I do think that a lot of this stuff, the way that it's so stripped down and made into such a incredibly translated through various different filters, and like every scene or every like sphere of interactions, like whether it's like the home or the office or talking to the neighbors, each one of them has its own rules that actually affect like the dialogue and the way people interact. I do feel like he's not just doing the straight up satire, but he's also parodying the satire, just because I feel like that stuff had been done already. I mean, I'd have to go back though and think about it more in the context, because obviously some of that could just be revisionist looking at it now.
No, I mean, again, I'm open to it. Like I said, if I hadn't seen the third act, I would just say, Jordan, I think you're wrong. But I think the third act to me opens up more of this, like, maybe the first two things aren't just the perspective of the film.
And then the other side of it, like so that was like the double ironic reason why it's good. And then the other thing I would just say is, I think the performances in this are like very sincere. Like, I think actually, no matter what is coming out of the people's mouths, it's actually grounded in a way that is very different from...
It's well acted.
Yeah, exactly. In a way that's very different from all of the other things that I don't really want to get into in terms of like super heightened, super dopey, like, hey, everyone in this is so stupid and no one's acting like a believable human being. So when they try to be funny, it's just not funny to me because I get the shtick. And I don't think that's what's happening here.
Even the talent agents that are trying to poach Elmo are like very believable. Like, they're not overplayed. You can just imagine, like,
you're right.
They're Hollywood agent types. They could be so many different degrees of cliche. And I think they're actually just real 90s people that work in the industry played very naturalistically, right?
Can I read from the beginning of Getting Away with It to indicate, I think the beginning of it, of like the very introduction, really illustrates what, like, the vibe of this film. So I've got here the book. Introduction, aka a note from your publisher. Faber and Faber books are selected from premium manuscripts gathered from around the world and carefully blended to achieve robust flavor by our team of verbally abused editors. Using the latest anti-skip technology, our books are made with a unique publishing method which masks the garlic odor with a light vanilla scent. The result? Literature that both soothes and invigorates while accidentally stimulating the body's own defenses. Our books are smaller, richer, tastier, and quartz accurate. The way books used to be. The patented Faber passive handling system allows the reader to virtually anticipate every textual situation imaginable without the tail of the book swinging out in a classic oversteer fashion. We deliver the kind of reading experience a Faber shoplifter demands. Books with that rare combination of convertible excitement and year-round capability. Throw in a multi-weave tear-resistant paper and eco-friendly cherry-flavored binding with a surprising amount of trunk space, and you're talking serious hair loss, baby. Every Faber product is plainly packaged and securely wrapped with no clue as to its contents. We never sell, give, trade, discuss, or care about the name of any customer or employee. Just imagine if every time you moved you lost 40% of the horse you rode in on, then call the number above with your billing address. VHS format only. Do not chew. And so the guy is...
Can I impose on you, Jake, to
Please.
read the next two introductions as well?
Yeah,
you don't have to
more.
finish the third introduction. Just start the third introduction.
So that's from Lance Miggins from the Department of Corrections. Introduction Part 2, a.k.a. a note from the author. Can't get there until 9:30. Start without me. No, that's funny. I think that part's funny.
I think that's funny too.
Introduction Part 3, a.k.a. another note from the author. Brief, desultory discussion of forthcoming manuscripts, inception, purpose, and potential audience. Self-deprecating remark. Amusing anecdote with slightly serious undertone. Awesome display of ego disguised as humility. Joke about same. Transparently hollow thanks to contributors and collaborators. Steven Soderbergh, Los Angeles, California.
The reason that I made you read the third one is, to me, this is where we enter into a troubled zone, because when you're trying to point out the like emptiness of communication and weaponize some irony against like what Ray was talking about at the beginning, using like this template speech, if you reuse that stuff in a different medium, that is kind of like giving up the game a little bit to me about the fact that like this is in itself, or can be, also an empty statement about the thing that you're talking about. So that's the danger. I would say that you got to be able to dig deeper than just making the same point about sometimes the things that we say to each other are perfunctory and they don't represent what we're trying to say. And so I would say that when the film really shines for me is when it tries to take a shot at that stuff, and when it falls is when I think it's like comfortable with just reusing what is ultimately a kind of a cliche observations for, I think, like somebody entering into like a countercultural period of their life to stumble upon.
I mean, I think the thing that's maybe bumping, the thing that's making me cringe about this is that like I used to attempt to do this exact kind of thing all the time.
Yeah.
In like if you read my high school newspaper columns or whatever, from when I basically forced myself into the position editing the section of the high school newspaper that had columns in it, which, you know, genius move on my part. But it's all this kind of stuff where like I can't settle into the riff, the game in like, you know, improv terms. The joke just keeps jumping all over the place, and like in here there's vanilla flavor and cherry flavor, and the book is a car, and the book is like making you lose your hair, and the book it's just like high quality paper, and he's making a joke about how people shoplift, and it's like all these things individually could be funny. Like the part where it's just him saying he's going to be late and he can't make it, and like that gets included in the book. That joke is funny, I think, because it's like in isolation. And so I find the scattershot nature of it all, I think I find it embarrassing. I think I resent it because I'm like
too close
there, but for the grace of God. Yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are we off the mark here?
No, I think you're totally within your rights to bounce off of this movie. It's definitely kind of asking you to.
But like, do you think that you're better than us for not bouncing off the movie?
No, not at all. I just personally think it works on its own terms, I guess.
It reminded me a lot. I had a summer job working in a law office in like 1998 or 1997, something like that. And I just remember like it reminded me a lot of how bad clothes felt back then, and like just how uncomfortable everything was back then, and how like I don't know, it's just like and Mr. Show. It reminded me a lot of like Mr. Show and kids in the Hall, and kind of that whole wave of comedy, and so it made sense to him being like, you know, I've made a bunch of movies, and I like it just in terms of him being like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to blow out the amps, I'm going to make myself really comfortable here for the rest of my life, because I've made a huge mess and thrown a tantrum. Yeah. And now it's only up from here, you know?
It is a tantrum.
That's how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, I that's funny that you mentioned Kids in the Hall, because I was thinking about this. When I was a kid, for some reason, maybe my parents didn't know any better, but they would rent us the South Park tapes from Blockbuster that had like, you know, 3 episodes on them or whatever. And they always had Comedy Central ads at the beginning. So it would show like a couple different shows. So there was always like an ad for Viva Variety.
Yeah.
And probably Kids in the Hall or Strangers with Candy or something. And then ads for like Comedy Central Presents. And I remember being so baffled by those, because like I just couldn't figure out where the joke was and like why this is funny, especially with Viva Variety and Strangers with Candy. I think I was just too young or something, and I could understand like, yeah, I want cheesy poofs, like that was funny to me, but I just couldn't get Amy Sedaris, I guess. And I had a similar feeling watching this, where like I recognize that the rhythms of jokes and like there's an obvious like tone that is comedic, but like I'm not laughing, and it makes me feel like an alien a little bit.
I don't want to say that I don't think this film is ever funny. There's like, I took so many notes during this movie because there's such a, you said scattershot, like there's such a range of things to either enjoy or not enjoy it. I think even that's kind of cool.
You know,
The horse piss thing, horse piss
Very
was funny to me.
Horse
Yeah.
piss was good. I like the reverse wife getting fat joke. Like it's a little iffy, but I think by turning it on its head, where this guy married a woman and now she's like getting too thin in a reversal of the classic like misogynist joke, I thought was funny as a sort of a conceptual thing.
Because it's just like drawing attention to the strangeness of like body expectations in general. Yeah, I think that to me is living in like 90s satire in a productive way. And also just
right,
like weird little lines. I forget what his name is in the movie. Numberhead.
Nameless Numberhead Man.
Nameless Numberhead Man.
Yeah,
Eddie
amazing.
Jemison,
Eddie
who's
Jemison,
he's
exactly.
gonna come back in the Ocean's movies.
Yeah, anybody who's seen the Ocean's movies is recognizable. But he has a couple lines that are like jokes, but he doesn't, like you guys are saying, like Raiden Jordan, he doesn't hit them like big, broad comedic jokes. He says like, Lester's dead. He's going to be dead for a while. So I might as well, like, you know.
Yeah.
And the fact that he doesn't lead into it is really, really funny. And he also talks about getting fired. And his last line that he says to Soderbergh is, "Do you have any money?" Which I think is a funny thing to say.
And also in that scene, it's kind of a subtle thing, but the box he's putting his shit in is so big. It's not funny. It's not funny enough that you're like, wow, that's super funny. But if you watch it again, like it really fills up the entire bottom of the frame. It's not like the like sort of file box that you would use. It's more like a moving box, and it's kind of like floppy, and I don't know, like little details like that. And I also just think, like, you say it's scattershot or you say it's all over the place, but I would also say the variety is the spice of this movie's life. Like, there's so many different kinds of jokes. You know, there's dialogue, just jokes. There's constant visual gags, like just really weird stuff going on that kind of just really quick. Like when, you know, after the exchange between Munson and his neighbor, there's just that moment where like the baseball flies across the thing. And it's, I guess that's kind of a reference to him zoning out and like losing the baseball game when he was a kid. Perhaps.
Yeah, he got the yips.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, there are jokes that I like. I really like the Baton Rouginess of it all. I like that it doesn't look like LA. I like the kind of sped up. Is it the video for the Breeders' Cannonball, or is it the Dinosaurs Jr. Feel the Pain video that the like driving sequences look
totally
like? It's one of those.
That reminded me very Kids in the Hall opening too.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like. Yeah.
And it's like post music video, like Hard Day's Night type stuff, right? I mean, this is Richard Lester.
Richard Lester, yeah. And so that's also what I think frustrated me. And the ending, the last third of it does point to what the rest of the movie could have been. I mean, you know, I know that Caden Cotard from Synecdoche, New York is not a real guy, so I can't compare him to Steven Soderbergh. But if we're talking about people who are like casting their real life failed relationship partners as failed relationship partners in a movie, Caden Cotard really knocked it out of the park, and I feel like Soderbergh could take a lesson from that guy. I mean, he did get a MacArthur Genius Grant, though, which is more money than... I don't think that he could have built the whole
for that amount of money
of New York. That's one of the places where I think that movie falls short.
I feel like he's almost trying every single kind of comedy, and he does a lot of comedy later. And it's not like I do feel like there's a strain here that he does pick up and run with, like the part where he's trying to be slick and he hands her his business card, and she's like, "This is a card for a massage parlor."
Can you guys remember there's another movie that has that exact bit that I love, and it made me laugh here too. I think it's just a great bit, but I was like searching it up online. All you get is American Psycho results. I was hoping you guys would be able to
that seems like a out of sight joke, or like a joke from like that's very much the humor I feel like of his later movies.
An Elmore Leonard, a Leonard bit. Yeah, and he's like he often casts comedians in bit parts. That's like a famous Soderbergh thing, like. You know, the Informant is full of, like, you know, Tom Papa just having 4 lines or whatever, like Jay Farrow in Unsane. He knows funny, and he likes funny people.
Sex Lies and Videotape, I mean, you just saw it, Jordan. I think there are funny parts in it. I mean, maybe some of it is just Peter Gallagher, but like,
I didn't mean to say that
in the Garden District is very funny. That's a funny line.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to say that it was humorless. I just meant to say that there was like, it sort of, the spine that held it up was sort of like an earnest core. And that's
for sure.
Totally cool. That's totally, I mean, and that's probably what helped people connect with it, is it's sort of like a movie about like someone's fetishes, but it's also kind of like, hey, this is like you're actually like basically fine, you're doing this in a way that's like not incredibly exploitative of anyone.
Do you think that you guys have a unique perspective on this, or a unique that it appeals to you more as filmmakers yourselves, as
why
people
I was
who have
excited
been
to have you guys here today?
yeah. like because Soderbergh talks about how he feels as a filmmaker like you have a million people like making demands of you all the time, and he wanted to be set free. And is there something like cathartic about watching this movie for you guys, that it's a guy clearly just doing whatever the fuck he wants?
I would say two things, which is just that it definitely, the fact that he did this in this working method where he did it over a long period of time, and he kind of did it can to can, you know, not ass to ass, but like
Yeah.
like every time he had a roll of film, he shot it, you know, like those projects typically don't work out. I think partly because they're not consistent. And so like to build a project where it could be so inconsistent, but also have this through line, there is something that sort of tickles the, you know, the funny bone of like wanting to just make stuff. And then I would also just say, like, I think it's an interesting question of like why he would spend 9 months making this, especially as a guy who sort of like even then was trying to be super efficient. Like the whole thing was like, hey, let's shoot it. Let's edit it. Like, why was this the film that he like stretched out and made in this kind of like weekend warrior kind of way?
I like it in terms of like, it reminds me of movies like Daisies, or like those crazy Godard films, you know, they're like all Maoist, like breaking down the structure. Like, so I can like, and those seem like fun to make, and like they're fun to watch. And so I can get it on that level. And then just in terms of like, I do think this probably made him a better director of actors, like almost immediately after going through this. Sure. Like it does seem like there was a lot of, he just ran through a bunch of stuff that would have dribbled out for decades if you had not just gone through a gigantic on-screen puberty, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
It's watching this and then Grey's Anatomy, which we will cover I think we'll cover it in the future, along with the other Spalding Gray doc. We'll get into it in more detail, but like that feels like a movie made by somebody who has just been sort of creatively like reinvigorated, but also got his sillies out and like is only doing wacky stuff when it's time to do wacky stuff, and doing like one wacky thing at a time. And I really like Grey's Anatomy. I think maybe just having like the structure of this already honed stage piece, and all he has to do is make it visually interesting. Maybe that's enough restriction to prevent him from doing the things that bug me about this. But I also like don't like Daisies, so I think maybe it makes sense that you know, if you like that, you might like this, and if you don't, you won't. But like I
do you like Pierrot Le Fou or Masculine Feminine, or do you like any of those?
I'm not that much of a Godard guy either, which is weird because like I'm a fucking silly nonsense little stinker.
Yep.
But I guess maybe I don't want that on screen. I want to aspire to the kind of focus and restraint that I see in the filmmakers I like, that I respect, like Jay Roach. You know, we're on the show. We are the official position of Podcasting for me is that Austin Powers International Man of Mystery is a masterpiece.
That's
And
great.
Oh,
checking the
yeah.
criteria.
Self-evident.
Absolutely.
Self-evident.
Yep.
I like Bombshell.
I haven't seen Bombshell.
It's going to take a while for it to be reappraised.
Yeah, probably. It doesn't feel good right now, you know?
I think you guys are challenging me to figure out, like, because first of all, I want to say I finished this movie and this is the type of movie that I watch it and I just think like, this is so cool that this movie exists. I wish we had more variety of filmmaking that like is in this vein, because this is like very special to see something that is in this space, like in between tiny independent film that probably is never going to make it to wide release and people will never really see or appreciate, but is also just not something that is seeking an audience in any way, which obviously Soderbergh was very aware of. And just like, you know, he made it for himself and he made the movie that he wanted to make with his pals. And I think it's so cool. But all the things that you're describing, I mean, I am wondering like why something like Godard doing goofy stuff where he can also be self-indulgent. I'll be brave enough to say Godard. Yeah. And I guess when he does it, it's sort of like I just roll my eyes at like old Uncle Jean-Luc or whatever doing his stuff.
Well,
and
because
then
he's French also, so you probably just give him like half of that stuff you think, well, maybe I just don't have the cultural touchstones to get why this is funny.
Exactly. Maybe it's normal to talk like have a very beautiful woman talk about an egg for a while or something.
Well, hold on. now we're talking.
Yeah. I guess to me, it's like all the things that you're describing, but mixing in some stuff that is definitely like in the lineage of these people that he said and other people said he was drawing from, like a Buñuel or a Python or whatever, where it's like a page that says idea missing stapled to a tree.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing of like, you're talking about like your youthful self, Jake. That is definitely the type of joke that would have killed me at age 17 or something.
Yeah.
But I guess there's too many pieces in the film that I want to see more of, which maybe is me just imposing my desires onto something that he made for himself, which is not really the point. But seeing this person trying to tell a story about the dissolution of the marriage from their perspective and then switching to a weird doppelgang version of themselves that they're kind of reliving as that person, and then switching to the wife in that case, who is like going through all these things. That to me is like, that's the movie that I want to see, and
that's the juice.
Yeah.
And he keeps it's got the fucking Elmo oxygen shit getting in the way, and I don't know that adds to the communication breakdown movie at all.
It's braided though. It's all braided together, you know. Like,
what is the plot of the film? Can you just describe it? Like, these are the things that happen.
Thanks for doing the work for us. We skipped the
the plot of the film
not like
is
scene to scene, but just like if you had to tell it in like four sentences, it's like there's this person and that person, and it all ends this way.
Let me see what I can do.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's Steven Soderbergh plays Fletcher Munson, who is a guy, an office worker at, it looks like a very boring corporate office, and he's working for this self-help, like Scientology adjacent thing called eventualism, and he's a speech writer, and so he's tasked with writing a speech for basically the L. Ron Hubbard figure of this cult, this self-help organization, and he's detached from his wife. They don't communicate very well. Their relationship is crumbling. There is also an exterminator named Elmo Oxygen who is going from house to house, bedding down these women with whom he speaks in this word replacement code, but all the words are like kind of like quote unquote silly words that I used too many of when I was 14. And he is also being like pursued by some Hollywood agents who want to put him in a movie. We then meet Dr. Jeffrey Korchak, who is a dentist who is also played by Steven Soderbergh. They are aware of one another as doppelgangers. They drive the same car. And it turns out that Fletcher's wife has been sleeping with Dr. Korchak, and then sort of Lost Highway style.
I was going to mention Lost Highway.
Which came out the same year.
A year later, I believe.
Oh, okay. They sort of like fuse into one, and then we kind of, I mean, what's the resolution of this is
he falls in love with a woman who looks exactly like his doppelganger's wife that he's having an affair with.
Woman number 2,
exactly. Yeah.
And then he gets shot dead. And then the third part of the film, we see these events again from Mrs. Munson's perspective, and instead of the kind of generic greetings thing, Fletcher and Korchak are both dubbed in, like, first I think Japanese and then Italian and then French or something.
Specifically, Munson is Japanese, Korchak is Italian, and then a third version comes up in French.
In French, the most romantic language of love.
Yeah.
And then we see the speech finally performed by, what is it, T. Azimuth Schwitters. And it's like kind of nonsense platitudes, and then he gets shot by Elmo in the shoulder and survives. And at the end, we see Fletcher in a mall narrating kind of the rest of his life. And there's some other goofy shit in there. But that's basically, the movie is like, it's part, I think I texted this to Ian, it's like part Lost Highway and part Putney Swope, where it's like, keeps being interrupted by basically sketch comedy stuff. Except that I think, to my mind, the execution of the parts that are being interrupted is so sketchy itself that it's often difficult to tell what part is the movie and what part is the digression. Like, what if the whole Family Guy was made out of the cutaways, you know? And so, I don't know. Did I do it right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, that's the plot. I think those are the arcs. That's the way it threads together. And basically, it seems like when she's like, you worm, like, what's that beat? Like, basically, she leaves Munson for Korchak, and then he flakes out, and then she leaves disgusted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Brantley and Soderbergh both talk about their relationship, it's basically, the infidelity doesn't really come up. It's more of distance and absence on his part and like an inability to connect. That seems to be what they both talk about publicly as the reason that their marriage didn't work out. And so all of the, as Jordan, you've spoken to, all of the kind of jokes about how they're not talking are also, I think, illuminating this inability to connect, to just like speak to one another and have, you know, how was your day, honey, have a meaning that is, that's the thing that like this is the big brain that I think we all are supposed to arrive at with a little bit of maturity, is like, yes, we all have kind of sitcom-esque domestic lives and we ask each other how was your day 10,000 times in our lifetime, but like that, it's not important that we have a sparkling conversation every time we meet. It's more the consistency, the fact of caring about it, the listening to the story, and maybe I don't care about what the woman in accounting said this time, but like the fact of showing up anyway, that is the part of the relationship that is important and meaningful. And I feel like maybe Sodi just hasn't gotten there yet in his development as a relationship partner. Maybe he didn't want to put that in his movie, but I don't know. I felt like the analysis there also wasn't. Maybe I'm just like too mature and too like good at being in a relationship to like this movie. I don't know.
I just wanted to go back to what Ray said about like the you worm thing being repeated and it seeming like it's an important beat. And I just wanted to compare it and contrast it to the pivotal line from, is it Allison Elliott in The Underneath, where she says, yes, there's something very powerful about being absent. And that's kind of like, you know, this thing that she's learned from him, that she can also detach herself and separate herself and drive away. So it's like, those seem like important moments. And he did it in this extremely straight-faced version of, you know, something that was going on in The Underneath. And then he did it in this kind of multifaceted, refracted movie where you see the same thing a few times. I don't know. You're
right. I mean, that's a great observation. I think it's also connected to the kind of climactic moment in Sex, Lies, and Videotape where Graham basically says that, like, my problems aren't affecting anyone else. And the Andy McDowell character says, like, yes, they are. You know, you are connected to all of us. So I think he is having this, Soderbergh is returning to this question of like, can I stand apart from the people whose lives I'm a part of? Like, do I have to be connected to other people? Which is a theme that I think I really relate to in these other films, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I've hardened my heart to this movie too much.
I feel like at the end of the film, she says like there's been all this obfuscation and like decoded meaning throughout and at the end she says like, say you love me, say you need me, say I'm the most important person in your life. I love it when you say those things, you know?
I will say, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I appreciated, that's the type of joke that like worked and didn't sabotage the scene for me. But in Italian, he's doing a joke. She says like, say you love me. And he says, you love me. You know, like say, I'm the most important person in your life. He says, I'm the most important person in my life. So like, That's the type of stuff that we still get the emotion of the scene, and there's also a joke there, but one isn't detracting from the other, and that's why like the third act to me is so great. I think that's the stuff that really works for me. Even just the like speaking in Japanese version of basically the same observation, that he's saying stuff that she's not really processing, or like he's not making an effort to make it explicable to her. I guess that works maybe simply because I like at least being able to play it like earnestly in my head to some degree. And then you can also kind of enjoy the joke simultaneously, where I think some of the earlier versions make the joke primary and the observation secondary somehow. But it's funny, Jordan, you were saying that a similar thing comes up in the Underneath, but we talked about on our Underneath episode, the fact that Soderbergh hated making the Underneath, and the whole time he was just thinking about like, this movie sucks. I hope nobody ever watches it. Even though he wrote it based on his experience, he was saying like, this is not like, there's nothing personal about this. This is like not the type of movie I want to be making. But I think it's funny too, because I agree with you. Like the best parts of the Underneath and the best parts of this movie, I think to me, are the things that he is still working out. It seems like he just likes to work it out this way better, but I think the secret through line that maybe he would like to acknowledge, maybe he wouldn't, is that he's coming at this same concern from different angles, from different perspectives, from different resolutions that could or could not happen. So I don't know. I'm going to be kinder to Soderbergh in that way and say the stuff that he thinks is junk is still very valuable because it's dealing with some of these same concerns.
Death of the author, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means anything that they say they don't like, I like.
That's right.
Yep.
You're dead, dude.
I mean, he tries to get around that too, because he'll do, and you can find works by unpublished works by podcasts he co-hosts, at least one of them, probably both, with the same kind of like, you can't hurt me, I'll hurt myself first footnotes. As, for example, in Getting Away with It, he says, a film directed by the author which provoked unified confusion on its, quote, release, despite the author's ceaseless nattering about, quote, creative rebirth and his claims of being, quote, influenced by such illustrious predecessors as Buñuel, Richard Lester, and Monty Python, invocations that would be downright actionable if they weren't so patently absurd. The film's utter lack of coherence and aggravating restlessness ensured not only its obscurity, but its wholly appropriate role as a footnote like this one. Like, I don't know, man. Just speaking of the death of the author, like, if you can tell me that this isn't important all you want, but like, let me make the decision. I don't know. Don't tell me that your movie sucks. Like, because I want to, you know, leave that to the podcasters of the world, the poor podcasters. Do we have are there other getting your groove back films that we like? Films of this type? I was thinking about like M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit. Like a movie where a filmmaker has hit a creative or career slump, and then they do something small or weird or off kilter that kind of revitalizes them, either in the eyes of the public or just like as an artist. Because I think The Visit, because he goes from After Earth, which is like $130 million budget, to The Visit, which was $5 million, I think, of all of his own money. And that movie, I think, I like that movie. I think it's successful in part because he's just trying to like make an entertainment. And this movie is not, I don't think he's trying very hard to please anyone but himself, which is that's got its own value. But were there any other films like this that came up for you guys when watching it?
Well, I think that, the Coen brothers have done it twice, and we're hoping that they're about to do it a third time, basically with like Fargo and then No Country for Old Men. And then they're apparently writing a really violent horror film together right now that is supposed to be low budget and it's supposed to be kind of a reset. So that's the first thing that jumps to mind. Is like, that has worked, really. Yeah.
Would you consider Drive Away Dolls in that vein, or is that its own?
No, I think that's kind of, I love that film, but I feel like the reset happens when every time that they go and make a film that's kind of like Blood Simple again, where it's like, where it's 3 threaded plot lines and, a very simple, like one of the characters is like a hunter, basically, Right. Yeah.
Unstoppable force. Yeah. Like it's like they're returning to their mantra.
I think so. Yeah. And that's always been really cool. And I can kind of feel it on the horizon right now, which is,
you can smell it.
Yeah. Which is a cool feeling. Yeah. Cool smell.
My answer is totally different, and I don't know if it even has anything to do with the career of the filmmaker I'm going to mention, but the movie that just flashed into my consciousness, like without any hesitation, is Dave Chappelle's Block Party. Directed by Michel Gondry. Just like this, it kind of just, in some ways, just the way it's shot, like it is shot on film, and it's just like very kind of collagey, and it's documentary, but there's still like there's that weird stuff about that woman who lives in that Broken Angel house in Clinton Hill, which I'm sure is not around anymore.
Did you know that movie has the same co-editor as the film Schizopolis?
Wow.
Yeah, Sarah Flack, who comes in
Damn.
as co-editor on this, and then she's the credited editor on The Limey and Full Frontal, and she's a big Sofia Coppola collaborator. She's edited, I think, all of her films.
Can I just say one thing? Going through some of these character actors in this film and going through these are some of the coolest IMDb pages, because these people, like when you say the hybrid crew people actors, they really have almost equal amounts of just true character actors, like being in like 4 things a year, and then also just like set decorator. Like
Mike Malone, who plays
what a IMDb for this guy. You gotta look it up.
Schwimmer, David Schwimmer. He plays David Schwimmer. He's like a on-set dresser for like Twin Peaks.
Yep,
and then
is also in Twin Peaks and is a set dresser.
Right.
He's hybrid on Twin Peaks, also in both iterations of it.
I mean, directors just see the shape of that guy's head, and they're like, "You have to get in front of the camera right now."
I mean, but that's the same with the guy who played Bob, right? I mean, that's like he was accidentally in the back of a shot, and I mean, Soderbergh, Coens, and I would say like we did an episode of the Can I Kick It podcast where we talked about Coens and David Lynch doing Lost Highway and Man Who Wasn't There in the same year. Mulholland Drive and Man Who Wasn't There in the same year. And I think Soderbergh might be some kind of like cosmic trinity to that in some way. Like just the fact that this movie embodies the structure of like one character turning into a different character played by the same actor. Right.
The fact that movie, that structure became the template for David Lynch's next 3 movies, like all the movies that he would actually make. After that, I don't know. I mean, plus the return, obviously. I don't know. Just like there's something in the water. Well,
because has he explicitly talked about the OJ influence on Lost Highway, or is that something that like everyone else points to? The kind of, because I think my understanding of the inspiration for Lost Highway was thinking about the OJ Simpson case and like how you could appear to be like a loving husband and also kill your wife at the same time, allegedly. But like it's interesting how Soderbergh is just like, my marriage didn't really work, and that's enough of like a trauma to think of himself as like cleaved into. And for Lynch, it's like, well, you'd have to like brutally murder someone in order to feel this way. I don't know, but it seems to have really stuck with him. I mean, there's so many like doppelgangers throughout his work.
Yeah, and there was obviously in Kafka there was a lot of similar stuff too with the Jeremy Irons, and then there's like the guy
who looks like Leland Orser but isn't Leland Orser, right? Or is it Leland Orser? I don't remember.
I just thought of Irons and that guy who's like on that gurney being like doubles of each other. I don't know. Sure.
Ocean's 12 has
the Julia Roberts
sort of the Julia Roberts.
Okay, so can I say in this regard, in the commentary track, which I haven't quoted from directly, Soderbergh says that he actually broke not just the fourth wall, but the fifth wall in this movie, and then he's working on a new film where he's going to break the fifth wall, back the camera up 2 feet, and then the camera is going to rise up through the ceiling, and then he himself asks himself, as because he's interviewing himself in that commentary, he says, what movie is that going to be? And he says, without hesitation, that's going to be Ocean's 12. And I will say, is that not kind of what it feels like when they do the Julia Roberts thing?
A little bit.
But look, see, Jordan, that also made me laugh, that line. But that's the type of thing that, like, there's so many unclear layers of irony that I'm put in like a defensive stance of like, I don't even know how to react. I mean, in the commentary, he also says something like there should be two sets of laws, one set of laws for normal people and one set of laws for artists, because they should be allowed to have experiences that inspire them in their art.
Oh,
as a joke, that's a funny
weird.
joke.
Yeah, that's funny joke.
It's a joke. It's just fully a joke. And I don't really think that he was referring to the Julia Roberts thing in the...
No. I mean, yeah, but I don't know. These things are jokes and they're funny. But like you said, you talked about how loathsome the like Soderbergh characters seem to be. And there's a moment where they're attending Lester Richards' funeral, and what everybody is saying is like supposedly what is presumably going on in Fletcher's head, right? So like, aren't you glad this wasn't you? And that's the type of stuff that it just puts me in a confused position where I'm like, that's as insight into like an asshole. That's very good. If this is meant to be like, aren't we all having this experience all the time? Then I would say that's classic projection of like a very egotistical person assuming that everybody is as narcissistic as they are. And that's more troubling to me. But I guess it sort of puts me in a difficult position as a viewer where I don't know if I'm being cruel by thinking this person is a bad person, or if that is what the film is saying, in which case I join the film and I enjoy the film in recognizing this type of narcissism. And I guess maybe I needed maybe I'm a simpleton and I needed like a signpost to be sure.
Well, you definitely are a simpleton.
Yeah, I definitely am. But I just wanted to like know whether the film is thinking of this guy as like a sympathetic everyman who's ironizing stuff because that's the way the world works, or if he is like a kind of a self-indulgent prick that we're supposed to think this guy sucks.
I kind of thought that those scenes with the, you know, I put those together with the neighbor scenes. Like, it's more like what you're repressing when you're talking to people.
Sure. I
also really like what the preacher says when he says, "Time is in glorious abundance to those who procrastinate." Like,
there's some
I took that as legit.
Yeah, no, there's some, but see, that's what confuses me, man, because then there's like legitimately like straight down the barrel, like just good lines in the movie also.
Well, yeah, like when he comes out, one of the first things he says when he comes out and he's introducing, Steven Soderbergh's introducing it, he says the movie's been filmed in its entirety. And like, that's really funny. Yeah. I don't know. It's like it's a weird bit of nonsense. I feel that it's our responsibility as the host of the show Podcasty for me to do 1 60-second minute of trying to place this film historically, politically. And I think that, because this is the same year as Infinite Jest, we've been talking about David Foster Wallace. Mm-hmm. I think that this is just a period of economic abundance, that this is the only moment where white boys can get so worked up about like what the nature of meaning is that they can make films about it, because like this is like a spire, the hierarchy of needs pyramid, the
so much
beam
has been
of light
satisfied.
emitting from it, like the Luxor in Las Vegas. Like that's where that need is figuring out like what it means to be or whatever.
I'm going to just qualify that and say like, it's not even really about what it means to be, because that's like a serious consideration. This is like what it means to be me specifically. And that
yeah, exactly.
feels like more like of the area.
How come I feel a little bit empty?
Well, I will say, like, when David Foster Wallace wrote about David Lynch, he said, like, David Lynch didn't need to include any black characters because he was, like, operating on, like, a spiritual plane or something. And I think that, like, got cut out of the book version. But, I mean, wow. Yeah. But I will say, like, similarly, like, something that definitely stood out to me and, like, gave me pause was, like, when the only African-American, or like one of two African-American actors, looks directly at the camera and says, "I'd like something more important to do." Yeah. And then it just like sort of smash cuts to this inner title. Yeah. That felt like, okay, you're aware of something, but also like you still made this person like a desk clerk, and that's that's literally it. And you made your movie in Baton Rouge. So,
right.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing when like Sex, Lies, and Videotape is sort of skewering white suburbanites in Baton Rouge. It would make sense, a little more sense, for them not to interact with any black people, because these people in real life wouldn't. But when your movie is zany and all over the map, and to my mind, obviously pulling from Putney Swope, you could probably find some ways for just like one of the silly characters to incidentally be a black person, at least. I don't know. It also, I was glad that the Japanese translation or Japanese dubbing thing didn't go into the directions that it could have and often does in films from prior to about 2 years ago. But it made me scared. I got scared for a second. Any other political readings?
I had written down one of the things was just to talk about Wallace also, because I think I've probably mentioned on this podcast before, I took a cool class in college that was like an intro to philosophy class survey course, but done as a course about like what is irony, basically. So it was going through like Plato and Kierkegaard, and we ended up reading David Foster Wallace, some of these people, like what can irony achieve? What are its functions? What are its limitations? Like if you had to give a definition of irony. So we had like a working definition that we altered as time went on. Shout out to like a good idea for a college course. But I guess like this, talking about this moment, you're talking about economic abundance, and obviously I'm sure we'll in the coming months talk about like post 9/11 stuff, which I think when people talk about historical impulses and influences on American fiction, that's obviously like the next stage, right? We sort of end the 90s, like post end of history, economic success stuff, and we enter a world of like, okay, maybe we're reawakened to the fact that we're not like the protagonists of the world and that everything's not about us, or like there's issues that we've been involved with that are now like coming to bear or something. And I think as a film, in some ways I admire it because like it's doing the thing that it says it's talking about, and that like, you know, you're objecting, I think rightly, you're both objecting to the fact that there's no black characters or no serious black characters in this film, but as a text that like communicates the concerns of this moment, that almost makes it more effective to me, because, you know, like there's that cutaway to the dry academic who's like critiquing Munson or eventualism,
right? And that's just straight out of Monty Python and the Holy Grail,
right? Yeah, exactly. Or like an Annie Hall or whatever. And I think one of the lines he says is, the subject imagines himself as the focus of a detailed biography, and he's incapable of experiencing any emotion or event, no matter how trivial, no matter how insignificant, without imagining it set in type and scrutinized by the public. And this is like both the most effective parts and the limitations of a David Foster Wallace, right? Is to say like it is so effectively showing what it means to be caught inside your head and say like, my story is all I can think about and I can't even like step outside of it. But I don't know if the movie shows us like another way, which obviously Wallace talked about himself, talked about like dreaming of a new sincerity and dreaming of something that I can stop doing this, but not like forget about irony, just like accept irony and find something else. And I think, we're going to talk about Out of Sight. And to me, I think Soderbergh finds it. I mean, I think he gets to it. He talks about like feeling like now he can bring this stuff into his next movie. And I think he does that. And I'm really glad it wasn't Meet the Parents. It was Out of Sight.
No, he discovers genre in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Based on how Ian jacks off, I would think he took a class on what is ironing.
Oh, because his penis is like burnt and flat.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes the steam function, I don't really know what it's supposed to do, you know?
Yeah, dude, you should be spritzing that thing. You're scorching. It's funny because I think of Soderbergh now as such a he's not an issues filmmaker in like a Stanley Kramer kind of like talking down to you way or sort of like homework way, but you know, I remember a lot of when there was a discussion of who should make the Luigi Mangione movie, and like the three names that came up were Clint Eastwood, David Fincher, and Steven Soderbergh. Like those were many of the answers that I saw. I think it should be Eastwood. But now, you know, he made Contagion. He makes Aaron Brockovich is coming up very quickly, and he can do like just a cool movie, but also he's great at like dramatizing a real anxiety, like a real world concern. Magic Mike is one of the great recession movies. And so it's, I'm not like pissed off at him that he kind of got up his own ass in 1996, but it's interesting to see him, this side of him that's like so solipsistic and so kind of unconcerned with real problems that face real people. But as you said, Ian, he does kind of, he calls his shot in like an incredible way. There's this story called The Funk of Steven Soderbergh that's in the LA Times around the release of this film, where he says, quote, "My commercial track record is pretty terrible, but I guess there are enough people out there who still think that I might inadvertently hit the jackpot again, that I've been able to continue working." And the reporter asks him, does he think he'll hit the jackpot again? He said, "Yeah, I think at some point I will make something that is the right movie at the right time, and again, it will probably be an accident. I think the odds are that will happen again if I can keep working, if I can just keep working." And to read this guy say this before he makes Out of Sight and then the 1-2 punch of Aaron Brockovich and Traffic is like, I mean, it's kind of exciting, to just to imagine this guy has no idea that he's about to become Steven Soderbergh.
Or he's completely gearing up to do it on purpose. I mean,
yeah,
very
sure,
purposeful movie, Out of Sight,
Sure,
Definitely.
sure. And it's like at the end of the Getting Away with the Book, he talks about how he's like, as of this exact writing, I am awaiting an audience with Julia Roberts, whom I hope to direct in a project tentatively entitled Aaron Brockovich. It's like a guy. It's like the ending of Rogue One or something.
Yeah,
It's there's a horrifying de-aged Julia Roberts looking at the camera and saying, I don't know, Aaron Brockovich or something. I don't know what she's saying. Leave me alone. But
I mean, he was so, for the longest time, I feel like he was held up as the example of, the one for me, one for them, that you could straddle that line as long as you had, you went back and forth between projects that were almost designed to alienate the audience, and things that were just, just showed such an understanding of showmanship and what people want out of just Hollywood entertainment. And he seemed to be able to hold both of them in his head and always give you a super surprising combination of the two things. But yeah, this is just for him. I feel like this movie is just for him and people who want to find their way to his exact wavelength, Yeah,
he says in an interview around this time, he says, in terms of my work, I'm always looking for the stupid thing to do, the thing that makes you think, why would anybody put themselves through that? Which that seems like maybe the sort of embryonic version of the guy who makes a movie on an iPhone.
Yep.
And the guy who reinvents movie distribution, or this always trying a new thing, always pushing boundaries guy. But he seems to learn that in order to push boundaries, you do maybe need a genre anchor. Unsane is a very familiar type of movie, and it has very readable suspense kind of signposts, so the iPhone thing is the weirdest thing about the movie, and so that can we can handle that because the rest of it feels familiar in a fun way.
Unsane also feels like reading an expose article where you're like, wow, you could really get trapped in the system because of this and this and this. So it's a genre movie, but then it also has that sort of page turning New Yorker article where you're like, damn, the actual nuts and bolts of our mental health system is so labyrinthine and psychotic. Yeah. Can I just say, okay, I have two things that I've just sort of
yeah.
So the one thing is
you can say anything you want. You can have the podcast if you want. I'll give you the passwords.
Can I write some lines for Kimmy? No, I'm just kidding.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, she has to decide if she's going to read them.
Oh, I know. I understand. Okay.
I am not a piece of meat.
She's been clear about that.
We're going to send you meat.
Now we're talking.
Hell yeah. I love that line where it's Oliver Stone, I don't know who that is, send meat.
Yeah, that's
really funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, that is good.
Okay, so just two things. One is this is also the first movie he shot. Yeah. And he may never have acted again, but he definitely, in the long run, was beginning to make the decision that he'd be in the middle of these scenes holding the camera. And, so when you're on a Steven Soderbergh set, you are around the dude holding the camera in a way that's, I don't think that would have happened if he hadn't done this.
Wasn't he talking about acting on Presence? Wasn't he specifically speaking about himself as an actor?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, he said he had to redo shots because hey, everybody did great, but I just didn't move like the ghost should move. So we got to redo it.
And that's I think a real Lynch thing. I always think of Lynch's camera as a predator.
Yeah.
And so especially in Lost Highway, in fact. But I don't know if he had seen that at this time or whatever, but it's an interesting parallel.
Yeah, I want to get to your second thing, Jordan, but you basically set up my only last question. So I want to, if it's okay, I want to use this to ask. I want to put you guys both on the spot and just ask. We've kind of elided like the formal camera choices of this movie, which, I mean, he shoots like 12 different ways, probably. I guess I want to take advantage of the fact that you two guys are on the show. Yes. And say, I mean, I will say that like even the things, I don't know what you even call those, the moments where he's like identifying which act it is, like the act 1 thing that he shoots in a cafe, act 2, I think is like on a pier. They're like, they would be amongst the most beautiful shots in a different movie. He shoots them with like 70s handheld, like soft, like warm light. And then he opts not to do it. It's so crazy to me that somebody is like capable of that and saying, I don't give a shit. Like I'm going to do something else besides this very, very beautiful way that's available to me. So I guess I definitely want to get to your number 2 thing, but very quickly, is there anything that stands out to you guys as like somebody who's playing around with these different ways of seeing people, like visually seeing people? He has like things for his fantasies, things for different characters, whatever. I mean, what does that like speak to desires that you wish you could like have more freedom to play around with? Do you feel limited by like convention in stuff that you guys shoot or think about?
Well, I think like if videotape was the fascination of Sex, Lies, and Videotape, this feels like it's going back to like the feeling of 8mm home movies. Just like the opening scene where like it cuts from like a relatively staid like dialogue scene to all of a sudden we cut to what to me looks like 8mm, and the guy like he jumps out of his chair, it's undercranked, and he gives her a kiss,
yes,
then spits out a tooth, and then she smiles and she's missing the tooth. It's like instead of like cutting to video where it's this sort of false intimacy or whatever, it's like let's cut to 8mm, and it's just it represents like all of the sort of unbridled zaniness and goofiness of like, you know, what's going on inside this character's head. So I don't know.
And he's got like Bergman wind sound effects for that shot too. Yeah, it's good.
It's really 90s. You know, I just like it in terms of like, it's just this, it's like, that's 90s film school, experimental 90s film school stuff. Really looks like this. And yeah, that like jumping into 8mm for a dream sequence.
Kids in the Hall intro. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
but
no,
like,
that's, I mean, that's the thing. Like to me, it was like those opening graphics where they're like introducing this Dianetics character and the Civic Convention Center. That felt very Mr. Show. And then all of the kind of 8mm high-speed stuff felt very Kids in the Hall. And then the humor, like that was so inspired by Monty Python also. So it felt like it's this Gen X kind of generational, like I'm watching lots of MTV and I'm doing this like really heady, ironic, you know, mid-90s humor, basically.
It reminded me, and also just made me want to like return to those directors series DVDs with the work of Michel Gondry and the work of Spike Jonze, the work of Chris Cunningham. Like it was getting me excited about messing around with film in that way.
Yeah, like it insists that you think about that. There's no way you can watch this movie and not think about those choices. All right.
But like, where's Kylie Minogue? You know, where are the Chemical Brothers? Sure. Why haven't they shown up? That's all I'm asking.
But a lot of music videos back then, they would just like cut to like a grainier black and white in the middle of the coverage. And that was like that really meant something back then, you know? So it's just very of its moment is what it feels like to me. And like someone who's like dying for digital video to be invented. Like you can feel him being like, I just want it so bad.
He just wants to mess around.
Yeah.
All right. Jordan, point number 2. Sorry for derailing.
No. I mean, it's been built up a lot. Okay. So, I mean, but this is just like a random thing, or just talking about this movie makes me really curious to see the re-edit of Kafka, Mr. Neff. Just because it really feels like I sort of expected it to be like some kind of like more arty, like sort of re-edit where he was trying to like actually like land all the punches that he was trying to throw in that movie. But my understanding of it is it's actually more like sort of a midnight movie dialogue-free thing where all the dialogue is dubbed into German, and there's like color casts on everything and like weird musical choices, and all that stuff makes me kind of feel like he took this incredibly serious, deeply sad black and white movie and tried to kind of turn it into Schizopolis. But 25 years later, like after he like drunk on his Bolivian
Singani 61,
Singani 63,
63, I mean, that would jibe with something, and I won't say who said this, but a friend of the show told me in confidence that they saw Mr. Neff and that it was, quote, unwatchable. So that maybe you're right, and it is very Schizopolis, which I also found difficult to watch. We'll have to see. Mr. Soderbergh, podcastyforme@gmail.com. Send a little screener over here. We'd love a private Vimeo link or whatever. Do you think he uses Vimeo? I think he's got his own.
That's probably right. Probably an early adopter of Vimeo, huh?
Yeah, he's like on the board or something. Or that, or he has some kind of like Neil Young style Pono, like lossless Vimeo version.
Yeah, I don't think he uses Vimeo. I just have a feeling he's not a Vimeo guy. Or he wouldn't put up with their extortionate practices and
Lively.
deleted his
He's a
account.
lively guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Break.com, maybe. Sorry, Ian, you were saying?
Oh, I was just going to ask, as two gentlemen who are in the industry out there, neither of you have seen this like secret film that he made with a bunch of people that you can only see if one of the cast members.
Oh, the Australian one.
Yeah, I forget
do
what
you
it's
guys know
called.
about this?
It was one of those like One Car Y style, like shot a movie while I was shooting a movie, and it's
like Grey's Anatomy.
yeah, like Grey's Anatomy. You're right, but it's like 9 actors, and you can only watch the movie if one of the 9 actors is like showing it to you in their home or something.
One of them is Kate Blanchett
Yeah.
or something, but then most of them are just Australian guys you've never
That's
heard of.
right.
Do you guys know about this movie?
This sounds sick.
Yeah, it
I
does.
love it.
It's a short. It's not a full. It's not a feature. Wait, what is it called
I
again?
can't remember. Yeah,
It's called Che Part 2. No, wait. It's called, what is it? The last time I saw Michael Gregg,
yeah.
Whoa.
and it stars Wayne Blair, Zoe Caritas, Essie Davis, Darren Gilshanen, Glenn Hazeldine, Genevieve Hagney. I'm saying all the names in case you guys know these people. Damon Harriman, who played Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's my buddy from Justified.
Peter Kowitz, Reese Muldoon, Emma Palmer, Sarah Giles, Kate Blanchett, Andrew Upton, and Steven Soderbergh as the voice of Bryce Krinsky. Do you guys know any of those people?
No.
It's a constant rewatch. Yeah, I love this movie.
This has an
yeah.
IMDb entry despite not
Yeah.
like being seen.
Well, I think the Robert Rodriguez, John Malkovich, Bacardi short film that won't come out until like 2113. I think that's also on IMDb. It's I don't know. I mean, this makes me think that maybe Schizopolis should also have had a Michael Gregg style release strategy where you could only see it by personal recommendation, you know?
Oh yeah, this is a blockchain film for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, like the Kevin Smith one. Kilroy was here or whatever. Wasn't that an NFT? Didn't Kevin Smith make an NFT movie?
Or Krapopolis.
We were talking about the Opolis movies, the Opolis quadrilogy.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Megalopolis.
Metropolis,
Yeah.
Cosmopolis.
Oh,
The anime Otomo anime Metropolis. Yeah.
Mhm.
But you know where you stop on the way to the theater to see all these Popcornopolis?
What's that?
Is that a place?
Do you guys have do you guys not have Popcornopolis in like Times Square or something?
No. What's
It's like a
popcorn?
it's a popcorn store and brand of popcorn.
Does it
also
look
that
like
they
the movie
do.
Metropolis, but with popcorn?
Yeah, or does it have
Yeah.
No.
Cool.
Greek columns on the outside of it?
No, it's kind of red and yellow, like popcorn themed. And it's like a place where you can just get they do that thing where they put the popcorn in like a plastic bag that's sort of like a cone, like one end of it comes to a point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
I mean, this
But-
seems like something the movie theaters would not like because you're buying it outside the theater and bringing it in, right?
But I think they also have like you can buy Popcornopolis brand popcorn at the store or something. So they could just reach an agreement where Popcornopolis is going to like provide. It's also, I think it's cold popcorn or room temperature popcorn, you know? Do you guys like popcorn? This is the final question of the show. This is the Laura San Giacomo thing is stupid. I don't like that anymore. This is the new final question for the Steven Soderbergh series. Do you like popcorn?
Love it.
Yeah?
It's the
Any particular
movies.
kind?
It's the movies.
It is the movies, baby. Yeah. Jordan?
I like how much variation there can be in the popcorn.
Yeah.
Like I like how you can like lean over and be like, popcorn's really good.
Right.
You know,
Something-
Jordan, you're
yeah.
right. Speaking of like conventional phrases that actually carry a depth of meaning, saying like this popcorn's really good.
This shit
Yeah.
is delivering.
Yeah.
It's hitting.
All right, we did the popcorn question. Fellas, Do you have anything to plug? What's going on in the world of Jordan and Ray?
Let's just tease, right? Let's
Ooh.
we will never stop, at least not until we finish the script.
Okay.
And we are also like are really trying to make stuff happen in other aspects of our lives. So, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just me and Jordan are going to have, we got halfway through the script of To the White Sea on our podcast, To the White Sea, which is us reading the unreleased genius mega budget Coen Brothers action movie that was never made. And so we're like halfway through the script and we're going to start releasing new episodes in July around a event that I think we don't want to give away just yet. But there's something coming up in July and we're going to start releasing episodes to kind of coincide with that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Coincide.
You heard it here
To
first.
coincide. Yeah.
Wow.
This is
Yeah.
We got a
Nice.
scoop.
breaking news here. Yeah.
I'm super excited for the future of the show, and I love doing the show, and I love the Coen Brothers, and I love the sort of speculative act of imagining a big blockbuster, crazy, dialogue-free, super violent action movie made by the Coen Brothers in 2001 to come out in 2002. Like, just like that movie not existing, and yet us sort of trying to imagine what it would be like if it existed, and also using that as a lens to talk about their movies and other movies, and talk to fellow filmmakers and people who work on movies and people who think about movies. It's been super fun, and I'm excited to get back into it.
It's a really cool, great podcast, and I so appreciate you guys doing it so inconsistently that we have any kind of leg up on you in any criterion.
Yeah, except here, I mean, I'm going to assume that anybody who has heard this episode already listened to you guys, but they are doing like film analysis that's already better than our film analysis, and they are doing like art of their own in each episode.
Yeah, it's graduate level coursework.
Yeah, so
it's
you really
impressive
can't
stuff.
compare the two things at all. Do you guys ever think about how like you have now maybe created like more around this story than was ever thought about by the Coens or by people involved?
Oh yeah, you may have put. I wonder if you guys have put more like mind hours into it.
I was thinking about the mind hours.
Definitely not, because they storyboarded the whole thing and they cast the
That's
whole
a good
thing.
point.
I think
You're
they
right.
scouted it. They were ready to make that movie, but I think we've probably affected the Google rankings of like the term.
That's
I hope
definitely
so.
The name.
We've left our mark in that
James Dickey.
Yeah.
Is that the name of the guy?
way. Yeah.
Who wrote the book? Okay, I would look good. My name's James legally, and I think I would look good with a Dickey. Write in, listeners, if you agree.
Is your name James?
His name's James.
Yeah, my legal name is James.
So it's one of the
Wow.
secret facts about him.
This
Yeah,
is
it's not that
podcasty
interesting.
lore right
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
My parents wanted to name me after my grandfather, but they didn't want to call me Jim because he had died too recently, and that would have been emotionally difficult. And they wanted to call me Jake, but they didn't want to call me Jacob because, like, biblically, Jacob means usurper, and I was the second child, and that felt rude.
Damn.
So they instead gave me the world's worst cocktail party anecdote about how Jake is not short for James, but those are my names anyway. So pretty cool, huh?
Jake James.
That's
Jake
right.
James.
Yep.
As for us, remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. Helps us on the algorithm. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, tell Elmo Oxygen. Tell him. He's listening. He's waiting for you. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Podcastiform if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you're interested in co-hosting a two-person Steven Soderbergh podcast. You can email us at podcastiforme@gmail.com. All of this is at podcastiforme.com and at shootingyourselfinthehead.com. Thank you to Jeremy Allison for our artwork. Next week on the Patreon, our appreciation of Gene Hackman continues with Get Shorty, which also dovetails nicely into what's coming up in 2 weeks on the main feed, which is Out of Sight, Soderbergh's sort of finding his mojo with another Elmore Leonard adaptation. So if you can't wait 2 weeks, sign up for the Patreon. It's $5 a month. Patreon.com/podcastiforme. You will enjoy it there or else. And do we say anything else at the end of the show?
We say thank you for coming on the podcast, gentlemen. It was a treat to have you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Our
We love
pleasure.
having you so much.
Such a
Thank you
I
delight.
so
didn't
much
want to
for
say that
having
because then you
us.
would leave.
Ah,
You know?
It's true.
Always a pleasure.
So hard to say goodbye.
Bye.